And I hope you can all of you can see it. Mr. Manish, there are people who are still joining. Can you just handle the
Yes, sir. I can handle
people
those.
being admitted?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So welcome, and I hope everyone can hear my voice. I think this is an important part because if you don't hear, then we have to do something about it. Is everyone able to hear? A couple of people can just say yes on chat, and it'll be fine.
Yes, sir. You are right.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. This is reassuring. So the limitation in a webinar is that if you are not able to hear, I have no way to know that you are not able to hear. So you have to tell me. So thank you QAI for this session and thank you everyone for joining it. We are going to cover an important subject today. And before I get into the nitty-gritty of this and explain what surgical safety checklist is, I hope everyone has heard this something known as uh, surgical safety checklist. Is this a fact that everyone here who's in this webinar has heard this name earlier? Yes or no? So chat box is a good place to interact. So I clearly some people obviously have heard. And if I can ask from all the people who are attending here today, what is your role? Just write it on the chat box. I need to know this because then I will tailor my talk accordingly. Otherwise, I may get into a discussion which may not be relevant for you. So, what are your roles? Are you a surgical team member? That means you are a surgeon or from any of the surgical specialties, or you are managing quality in the hospitals, or you are in some other role. So, what are the roles? Can I just request some people to write? So, I'll have an idea as to what we are talking about and what is the context. So then accordingly, I will tailor it to your context. Okay, I can see microbiologist, quality executive, quality head, project managers, quality coordinators. So largely quality team. Anyone who's from the surgical, any of the surgical specialties here? Okay. Fine, fine. I think this gives me a sense of this thing. But all of you are welcome to ask questions in between or write a question in the chat box. I'll be able to see the chat box. So when I see a question, I'll include that in the explanations, or I'll at least cover it separately when the session is done. So today's session is surgical safety checklist, and you have already heard about the Quality and Accreditation Institute from Mr. Manish. QAI is the second accreditation body that started operating in India, and it's the second Indian accreditation body. You have heard the other name earlier already. So our role is to develop and provide accreditation programs. And we have 22 accreditation programs as on date. And of course, as the healthcare industry and as the healthcare ecosystem evolves, you have different modalities of treatment or different things come up. So the standards also accordingly evolve. There's one more thing that Mr. Manish could have added, and I'll request him to add it in future presentations. That Quality and Accreditation Institute, and along with another company to which I belong, so we have gone into a collaboration with the ISQA, that is the International Society for Quality in Healthcare, and we have already announced courses in quality. Now, why is it important? So far, we do not have a single formal training program in quality and patient safety in India. Resultantly, all of us, all the members who are here in this webinar, and all of us, including myself, we have learned quality by experimentation, by attending various programs in bits and pieces, but there has been not a single formally structured program. So what we have done is EONMET QAI, along with the International Society for Quality in Healthcare, that is ISQA, we are now going to start a separate program. It is a 6 months residency program in a hospital where people can learn quality in a formally structured program. And there will also be the faculty, the international faculty, which will be nominated by ISQA, And we will bring in perspectives from several countries across the world. So it is not just that we are talking about a few standards or a few programs. We are talking about quality, and we will be covering how to do this. So this program is aimed to prepare people to lead quality systems in their hospitals rather than being a passive participants. And I mean, my experience is also similar to your experience. That the quality people are part of a hospital, but nobody is really bothered. I mean, that is what hurts me most of the time. So we are trying to create an ecosystem where people learn in a formal program, and that learning gives a depth of knowledge which is going to be beneficial to all of us. So with that, that was a little distraction, but since it was not covered in the introduction of QA, I thought it is good to do it. So let's come back to today's topic, and it is called Surgical Safety Checklist. This is the agenda. So we'll talk about the QAI hospital standards. We'll talk about what is surgical safety checklist, how to implement it, what are the benefits, and in an accreditation program, why is it that everybody across the world, every accreditation standard across the world is talking about surgical safety checklist. It wants the surgical team to include it in their work, and there are also similar efforts in other domains as well. So this is the agenda. QA, as you already know, is an international accreditation body. It provides accreditation, certification, education, and training. It is accredited by ISQA, total programs. Now, the validity of accreditation provided by ISQA under the hospital accreditation program is 3 years. And if it's a certification program, then it's a 2-year validity. Couple of things. This you have already known, but coming to the hospital standards, the hospital standard of QEI is ISQA accredited standard. I was fortunate to be the part of or to be in the technical committee which wrote these standards in 2022. So we wrote these standards, and then they were accredited by ISQA, and they've been implemented in various hospitals across the country. So the hospital standard has 10 chapters. There are a total of 89 standards, and there are 458 criteria. So this is the synopsis of the hospital standard. Now, since this standard came up in 22, and the SQA cycle is 4 years, so we are now working on the second edition of hospital standards, which will be completed in about 5 to 6 months' time from now, and it will go to ISQA for re-accreditation. So the current standard, which is the first edition standard of QAI, is 10 chapters, 89 standards, and 458 criteria. The chapter design or the structure of QAI standard is different from the other standards. So this is the reason why I have put it here. So QAI hospital standards begin with governance and leadership. There are 7 standards and 22 criteria. Now in NABH, because many of you would be aware of NABH, so in NABH standards, what is called an objective element is called criteria in QAI standard. If you compare it with JCI, in JCI they call it measurable elements, so they are called MEs, and here we call them criteria. So it's that component of the standard which is measured, which is evaluated. Many of you would already know that a standard is never scored. It is the criteria that is scored. So the chapters are governance and leadership, human resource management, facility and risk management, information management systems, and continual quality improvement. So these are the 5 first chapters, which you can call them as the management oriented or the hospital oriented standards or chapters. And then we have another 5 which focus on the patient. And these chapters are patient assessment and care. And this is the largest chapter. There are 20 standards and 108 criteria. Then we have patient rights and education, medication management and safety, surgical care and safety, which has 7 standards and 42 criteria, and hygiene and infection control. So today's topic comes under the chapter called surgical care and safety, which is abbreviated abbreviated as SCS. A little bit about the surgical safety checklist. I was fortunate to see the launch of surgical safety checklist in 2007. I was at that time in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and that's when the WHO campaign had started. Safe surgery saves lives. This surgical safety checklist was prepared by under the guidance or under the leadership of WHO, and there was a team of international experts from surgery, anesthesia, nursing, and patient safety. This team was led by Dr. Atul Gawande. I don't know whether you have heard this name earlier, but if you have not heard this name, do Google this name, Dr. Atul Gawande. Dr. Atul Gawande is a second generation Indian settled in US. Plays an important role in healthcare policy. He has a lot of speeches which are recorded and available on YouTube. Since many of us in this webinar are from quality domain, I would request you to read about him. I'll request you to listen to his videos, talks, which are freely available on YouTube. It's a pleasure to hear his ideas and how he has thought about it. There is also a book which is called Checklist Manifesto. It is a book that is written by Dr. Atul Gawande and talks about the entire process, how the surgical safety checklist was developed. This book is also freely available. So these two recommendations I can make instantly that you should, it's a good idea to go through it. Of course, inclination and other things do matter. So this surgical safety checklist was developed through broad-based consultations and in a multi-center pilot study in 8 global sites. So there were 8 hospitals all over the world, across the world, where this was tested. St. Stephen's Hospital in Delhi was one of the hospital in the multi-center pilot study. So this is where they designed the draft surgical safety checklist. They tested it in various hospitals. And because this was designed as a WHO endeavor, this list was tested in multiple hospitals across the world. I do not remember all the names correctly, but I can make an attempt. So St. Stephen Hospital was one. Another hospital was in Karachi in Pakistan. The third hospital was in Cairo in Egypt. A fourth one was in Germany, I think in Frankfurt, if I remember correctly. Then there was one in UK, I think it was King's College Hospital. Then, of course, in the Harvard Medical School was obviously one of them. And there was one hospital, I think in Brazil, I'm forgetting the name. So these were the hospitals where this particular surgical safety checklist was pilot tested and refined. And finally, it was announced as part of WHO campaign called Safe Surgery Saves Lives. This started in 2007. So this is a little bit background. We should know background, in everything in quality, we have to know the story. This is my view. I have been in quality for now nearly 20 years. Everyone, all of us should have a story. We should know why we are doing something. If you are implementing surgical safety checklist, we should know why we are doing it. Why is it important? Because if we know the story, if we know the importance, if we know why it matters, our interest becomes better, our involvement becomes better, and we are able to convince others also based on the same story that convinced us to do it. So knowing stories, talking about stories is important. Okay, so let's now go quickly. This was a little bit of background. This I'm sure all of you have seen. This is the classic surgical safety checklist. And if you read through the documentation which is provided by WHO, they say that you can modify this checklist. But please remember, this checklist is something that has been tested, validated over hundreds of hospitals by now across the world. In fact, thousands of hospitals. Now, if we were to do any change in this, and for that changed version to be valid, we should also similarly pilot test it. Obviously, none of us can do a 1,000-center pilot study, but at least in our own hospitals, we should test it. We should not indiscriminately, without a reason, change any part of the list. That is what is important to know. Okay. So we have 3 parts. One part is called sign in, which is before induction of anesthesia. The second part is called time out, which is before the incision. And the third part is called sign out, which is before the patient leaves the operating room. Okay. Now, in the first part and second part are fine, but the third part can also be read as before transfer to recovery. That means before the patient leaves the operating room or before the incision is closed. Please remember, it is important to do this before the incision is closed so that we know we do the counts. We do the sponge count, we do the instrument count, we do needle count, we do all the counts. Why is it important? I'm sure all of you know this is important because we don't want to have a situation where something is left behind. And when that happens, it is a sentinel event in the quality language. So it is important to understand that the sign out has to happen before the incision closure, not before the patient leaves the room, even though the recommendation says so. So we will just dissect or go to the details of each of the parts of the surgical safety checklist. The first one is called sign in. This includes what all? I'm sure you all of you have read it. I have also read it, but let's revise our understanding. So it includes verification of patient's identity. How do we verify patient's identity? I'm sure you know that identification of patient is the first international patient safety goal. Why is it first international patient safety goal? It is a first goal because this is the most common problem across the world, that we fail to identify patient identity correctly many times. Of course, hundreds of times we have done it right, but there are also another hundreds of times where we do it wrong. So patient's identification is important. But what is more important is how to identify a patient when the patient is unconscious for some other reason, not because of anesthesia. So a patient is already unconscious. He is brought to the operation theater for surgery. You are going to implement the surgical safety checklist and the patient obviously is not conscious. How do we check the name of the patient and how do we check this? We should know this. Today's is not my agenda to cover how to identify a patient, but I am pointing it out. The next point to be checked is how do we, so the next point is surgical site marking. Who does the surgical site marking? It is supposed to be done by the surgeon who is operating. If this trainee surgeon is going to operate, if you are in a teaching institution, you will know that there are MD, MS or DNB students. Now, when when MS general surgery or MS surgery students are going to operate, it is their responsibility to mark the site. Then the anesthesia, somebody checks the anesthesia equipment and medication checks. So what do we check? That the equipment is functional, that the equipment is calibrated, that the equipment is available inside the operating room, and also the medications which are anticipated are also available. We also obviously verify the patient's allergies and confirm from the anesthetist that he knows about the allergies because he is the one who's going to administer the medication. Difficult airway or aspiration risk assessment. So this clearly is part of the pre-anesthesia checkup, that is the PAC, but this has to be reconfirmed before the anesthesia or at the time of sign. And then finally, we also check blood availability if it is anticipated that there is likely to be a blood loss. So there is one of the point, if you can see on the screen, it says, is there a risk of more than 500 ml blood loss? If the risk exists, then we should have what? We should have 2 intravenous access or central access, and fluids should be planned accordingly. So this is the first part. So what the first part does is that it prepares the stage for a safe surgery, right? It prepares the stage. It is doing checks that, yes, are we ready to do this surgery or not? The second part is the time out. Now, this time out is before the process or the procedure of surgery actually begins. The team members introduce themselves by name and role. Then we confirm the name of the patient and the name of the procedure. Then we confirm that the antibiotic was given within last 60 minutes, that is within last 1 hour. And then the anesthetists and surgeons and the nursing team reads out the anticipated critical events. So what could be the anticipated critical events? That if there is a difficult airway, so you can say, okay, there can be problem in the intubation. The anesthetist might say, they may say also there's an allergy, or this surgeon might say that there is a chance of blood loss, or whatever are the anticipated surgical or any event during the surgery. Then critical events can be what all. So I have said some, but then I also made a list. So identifying the non-routine steps or expected duration. So we know that, okay, this guy is coming for surgery for the similar thing second time. For example, second cesarean section. Or somebody who's been operated for gallbladder and now he's coming up for another abdominal surgery. Okay, so we know that this is a second surgery on the same patient and the same site. This is going to be a longer duration. Why? Because there will be changes because of the previous surgery inside the body. Then we identify the non-routine steps. So we try to anticipate, okay, is there something that we don't normally do, but we have to do it in this particular patient? This is the job of surgeon and the anesthetist. Things can be as simple. For example, somebody has a cervical spondylosis and the surgeon, the anesthetist might have a difficulty in putting an airway. So that is an issue. Similarly, what is the anticipated blood loss? Are there any patient-specific anesthetic concerns? For example, a patient may have a renal impairment, a CKD, a chronic kidney disease, or a liver impairment. And in that case, there will be concerns relating to what medication can be given, what can be the overall duration of surgery. Then at this time, pulse oximeter functioning is also checked and sterility is confirmed. Now, how do we confirm sterility? So this is applicable for, so this is applicable. The sterility confirmation is applicable for all the surgical instruments that you have. So somebody confirms, yes, that the instruments were packed, they were checked when they came from CSSD, the packing is intact, and there's no issue. Right. So this is for the sterility confirmation. And then we check whether the equipment is adequate and whether the essential image is displayed or not. A lot of times the surgeon would like to have the image in display already. Now, if we don't have an image, then there's a problem. So these are important points at the time of timeout. Next is sign out. This includes the verbal confirmation of the procedure name, completion of instrument or sponge or needle or suture counts, specimen labeling verification. A lot of times during surgery, you have biopsies being taken or some sample is preserved. Please remember that identification of the sample or a biopsy specimen is same as the identification of the patient. So this needs to be confirmed at this point in the surgical safety checklist or at this point in the procedure. And then we identify if there was any problem during the procedure, that problem relating to the equipment, some equipment did not work properly, or there was other issues. And then what are the key concerns for recovery and patient management subsequently? Now, here what we say is that, okay, the patient has lost more blood than what was anticipated, so recovery is going to be delayed. Or the anesthetist might say that, yes, the patient recovery is going to be, or the arousal is going to be a little difficult because of whatever reasons he has found out, or the patient already was known as non-allergic, but during the surgery, when the medication was administered, there was an allergic reaction. So these are the concerns for patient for recovery, and accordingly, the patient management instructions are also decided. So these are a few things that are required at the time of sign out. Now, as I have already said, the WHO encourages modification to suit local practices, but please remember, if you modify, you must validate the modified version. Otherwise, we are likely to miss something. What are the effects, or why is there any impact that the surgical safety checklist has made? Yes, there is already data available. So we know by now that because of surgical safety checklist, the surgical complications have reduced by 36%, almost 1/3 reduction, which is huge. There is already a documented decreased mortality rates, enhanced communication within the surgical team, and improved patient safety outcomes. So when we say improved patient safety outcomes, we say that there has been no lesser adverse events. We say there have been lesser sentinel events. So what are the important parts of surgical safety program? Because surgical safety checklist is essentially a part of surgical safety program. So I'm going to cover this in next 2-3 slides. Very short, but we should know it because many of you are from the quality domain, and it will be our responsibility as a quality professionals to be able to tell the hospital leadership and to be able to tell the hospital teams that this is what we need to do. So institutional policy on surgical safety is an important requirement. There has to be a leadership support. Without that, nothing works. So visible commitment from surgical team, from anesthesia team, and from nursing team. Structure process outcomes is a useful frame for developing policy. So when we are trying to write a policy, we should say that what are the structure requirements, what are the process requirements, and what are the outcome requirements. Then we need to create some staff structure. That means some team, some people. So we need a dedicated coordinator for surgical safety program. Usually this person should be from the surgical team itself, preferably a doctor. But if you don't have that, then let's have a nurse who's part of the surgical team and he or she becomes the coordinator. And then obviously we require multidisciplinary team, which includes surgery, anesthesia, nursing, quality, and hospital administration. Then we need the education and training programs, and these programs will do two things. Now you can ask me, what kind of training should be conducted? I don't want to give you a list. Please decide for yourself. But your training programs, when we talk about surgical safety, should address two requirements. One, why do we need to do this? So this should include the rationale of the program, the patient safety values, and what we are doing in the institution. And it should also include how to do this. So we talk about how to create, how to use surgical safety checklist, introduce it to the surgical team, and how to ensure there is an ongoing support for it. Then we are talking about monitoring and audit. This is integral part of any program in healthcare. So surgical safety program is no different. We need a dedicated person to collect data, analyze the data and report, ensure there is a documentation of use of surgical safety checklist, and we should audit a couple of things. The compliance rates, the completion rates, the interaction quality among the team, and items prompting corrective action. So if something has happened during the surgery and that could have been covered using the surgical safety checklist, this should be pointed out. And finally, in a surgical safety program, we require reporting. So we should tell all the stakeholders, including the OT staff and including the governing body, that we have been using various safety measures, including the surgical safety checklist. You should talk about the compliance. You should talk about the failures. You should talk about all the other KPIs that you may have. And we should be having safety issues in surgery discussed in the safety committee or any other similar body that you may have and ensure correction and corrective actions. What are the benefits of surgical safety program? So there is a peri-operative complications reduction. In some cases, it has been 36%. Mortality rates with permanent disability or death reduced. Prevent errors and communication failures. This is also IPSG 2, International Patient Safety Goal number 2. So communication becomes better, and that means better care and better coordination. Critical safety items identification. This is, remember, at the time of sign-in, we are trying to see whether every equipment is available. This is an important benefit of this. And then development of robust surgical safety or safety culture, and systematic verification of patients' identity, site, procedure that prevents wrong site, wrong patient, wrong surgeries. The other benefits are that it acts as a risk management mechanism. So it protects from legal liability by demonstrating documented adherence to safety protocols. How does it help? So if you are using surgical safety checklist, and if you are using and documenting the use of surgical safety checklist correctly, it helps you. It makes your case stronger in the court of law when somebody alleges that there has been a wrong surgery. So you say that we have necessary procedure in place, we have a policy in place, and we are able to prevent such events by having a systematic design. It provides opportunity for benchmarking by comparing surgical outcomes. This you can do if you are a group hospital among your hospitals, or some, not many hospitals publish this data, but if some people publish this data, you can also use it to compare. Meet accreditation requirements. This I have said earlier. Surgical safety program is part of every accreditation program in the world, every country, every program. And using surgical safety checklist is also part of every accreditation program. So it's a global requirement, and it enhances patient staff satisfaction and professional development. Now, surgical safety program is mandatory. We have covered it. The QA hospital standards also require you to implement a surgical safety program. There is a program of by QA which is called WHO Patient Safety Friendly Hospital Certification Program. This program specifically wants the hospital to implement surgical safety checklist. And there are, this particular program serves as an institutional commitment or evidence of institutional commitment to self-regulation, ethical functioning, and quality improvement mechanisms. This is one video. I'm not going to show you any video, but I am going to share this link with you. I'll copy this and put it in the you can use it, or you can also search yourself. Please go to YouTube. You should see the videos how not to implement surgical safety checklist. There are also hundreds of videos where it says how to implement a checklist. So both are there. I have chosen to point out how not to implement surgical safety checklist, because this is something that a lot of us ignore. A lot of us miss, not ignore, miss. Okay, so with this, I have finished. If there are questions, I'll be happy to take. Please write down questions in the chat box. That's the best thing to do. Okay, so I have first question already. Okay, Mr. Manish, I think you said something that question answer session will be after a small session by someone else. Is that there?
Yes, yes, sir. First, we'll have a QA accreditation process, which take care by Miss Aishwarya. Then we'll take question and answer.
Okay, fine. So if you permit, can I just take this question, which is because it has already propped up on the chat box.
Okay, sir.
So it says, it is asked by Sukanya Tiwari. The question is the dedicated surgical safety coordinator supposed to do surgical safety checklist audit? Also, how to validate it? Now, I'll answer the second question first. So how do we validate? So when we modify the checklist, we put it through a pilot testing. That means we run it through in our organization. We see whether it is working correctly or not, whether it is able to tell us the errors, and whether it is able to tell us the gaps. If it is fine, start using it. If not, then change or revise the surgical safety checklist. So there's the second part. The first part is who is supposed to do the surgical safety checklist audit. Now, it depends. If you're a large hospital, let's say if it is a medical college hospital, I would give this responsibility to the Department of Surgery itself, that please do the audit yourself. We don't want to get into that. It's a self-audit. Please remember, self-audit in healthcare is always the best form of audit, because that is where you will find a lot of things. If you try to audit somebody, if somebody tries to audit you, nobody likes it. So that is the reason. Self-audit is best. And if it's a large hospital, then I'll give it to the department. If it is not large hospital, then it is good that the quality coordinator or the quality manager, whoever is there, whatever is the name of the designation, should only do this. Why? Because they know how to do this. I mean, if you expect others to do it, they may not know. So with this, I'm taking a break. Over to you, to Miss Aishwarya, who's going to tell us something about the accreditation process, and then I'll come back in for questions. Everyone, please write your questions while we are going through the next presentation.
So now
okay, thank you so much, Rakesh sir. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. So I'll start with the QAI accreditation process. We begin with the self-assessment, which is the organization wherein the organization evaluates itself against the CHSE standards using the self-assessment tools. Then the next is where the organization submits the application along with the completed self-assessment toolkit, required documents, and then the applicable fee. And once after that, once received, QA undertakes review, registration, and acknowledgement of the application, followed by a detailed document review. If required, a pre-assessment may be conducted, but this is optional and can be done on-site, remote, or hybrid to help the organization understand any gaps before the final assessment. After this, the final assessment is conducted, which again may be on-site, remote, or hybrid as decided by the organization and the accreditation. Post-assessment, the assessment report is reviewed, including scoring and identification of any non-compliance and hence raised during the assessment. Then the organization is then required to meet scoring requirements and submit corrective actions for any non-compliances that were identified. Then these corrective actions and scores are placed before the accreditation committee, which validates the score and reviews the acceptance of corrective actions. Upon approval, the accreditation certificate is issued, which is valid for 3 years. During the accreditation cycle, a surveillance assessment is conducted between 15 to 18 months, which may be on site, remote, or hybrid. Finally, the organization must apply for renewal of accreditation at least 6 months before expiry to ensure continuity of accreditation. So, this is the overall accreditation process that we follow. Benefits of accreditation. For patients, accreditation enhances safety and trust. It assures that procedures are done under stringent safety procedures and protocols. Qualified professionals, care is delivered by trained and qualified staff with verified credentials. Transparency and rights, informed consent, ethical safeguards, and patient rights are upheld at every stage. There is continuity of care as the patient benefits from well-defined pathway, and it causes better outcomes as evidence-based practices reduce complications and hence improve clinical results. For staff of healthcare facilities, accreditation process provides opportunity to staff all the level professional development. It may help in building higher staff satisfaction because of leadership opportunities and ownership of processes. Being robust documentation and procedures in place, it also supports building their confidence to deliver proper care. For third parties, accreditation provides an objective system of evaluation, and third parties like insurance companies, other payers, government, etc. The accreditation helps in access to reliable and documented information, infrastructure, and services and level of care. Objective of these standards are to provide a framework for quality assurance and quality improvement, focus on patient safety and quality of patient care, set standards for quality and safety that organizations must achieve, to be revised periodically and raise the bar, and to achieve international recognition. So that's it with the QA accreditation process and its importance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Aishwarya. So we are now open for your query and doubts. So if you people have query and doubts, please ask from the today webinar agenda or from the QA accreditation process.
Okay, questions, please. You have the chat box, so you can use the chat box to ask questions, or you can also,
You may unmute also. So we have given a right you to unmute yourself. So first you may unmute yourself, then you may ask your query. So we have also dropped some link for upcoming training and webinar. You may visit our website. You may also write your query to info@qi.org.in, and I have also dropped our contact number. So you may contact us for the QI accreditation of your healthcare facility. And as per the sir request mentioned for the SQA program also, we have dropped two link. So you may submit your query on the given link.
Okay, questions, please. So looks like no questions.
Can we have group photograph also? So I request everyone to switch on a camera. We can have one good photograph. Please switch on a camera so we can have one.
Manish, are we sharing the PPT or the recording?
Yes, sir. We'll share the PPT to them.
So because some people have asked whether what indicators are required. Now those indicators I had listed in the PPT, so they can use it.
Yeah, I'll share with them. Okay. So everyone is ready. Please smile.
Okay. Done, Mr. Manish.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you
Thank
for
you
your
very
wonderful
much.
session. And thanks to the participants for your active participation. So if you have not any query and doubts, so we are going to close the session now.
Okay, looks like no questions. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Manish.
Thank you, sir.
And see you some other time. Bye.
Sure. Thank you. Bye.